I'm Stuart Agnew. I'm a recently elected MEP from the Eastern region to Brussels, and as a farmer I've almost automatically been put on the Agriculture Committee in Brussels, and I find that a very impractical committee. A lot of people are there for different reasons. We even have a human rights lawyer on that committee discussing farming issues, which I find very, very strange. I see my role in that committee to push as hard as I can for the British farmer's interest and not for the interest of anybody else, because there's no doubt at all in the CAP the big beneficiary is the French farmer. I mean, for example, when the WTO stopped us giving headage payments to animals, we thought in Britain that was the same throughout the EU, but it wasn't actually. The WTO gave the EU a quota. They said, okay, you can still give headage payments to a very small degree, and interestingly enough, the French got the entire allocation to themselves, which means they're now getting 50% of the headage payments that they used to get, plus the full single farm payment, and it's that sort of thing we must highlight.
Member states particularly.
Well, in that Agriculture Committee there are people representing Slovakia or Hungary who have ideas that, in my opinion, are 100 years out of date. They want to try and preserve full-time livelihood for somebody with a handful of animals, and it can't be done.
No, it's a real challenge.
It can't
for
be
them.
done. They regard the whole thing as a social policy rather than a food policy.
Whereas, the Common Agriculture Policy also started for one of its core aims, wasn't it? It was to maximise food production, cheap food, and keep people on the land.
Yeah.
That's what it was done for. Well, now, especially with the review coming up, I think there's everyone's got to have a debate on what is the CAP for. What do people want? Do they want it for environment? What if you do, say it.
Yeah.
Don't hide behind saying other things.
Well, they do want it as a social engineering
Or
tool.
do you want it social engineering? And are you saying that food prices don't matter and you're not worried about food production? To say what they want out of CAP.
Yes.
And be upfront about it. We're quite clear on what we think it should.
And then you've got what does the WTO want from the CAP? You see, that's pushing that all the time.
The WTO affects everything.
Far more than the British farmers realise. It's driven the agenda now for the last 20 years, really, and in getting the CAP to wind down its barriers and all that sort of thing. It's a slow process, but it's relentless. It never goes back. It keeps going one way all the time.
This so-called level playing field and everything is something that we've British farmers have been for a long time, and it's sort of one step forwards, one step back in terms of Europe, and then you've got other countries, the States, at the same time to contend with.
No, you may be, you're a livestock. No, you're not fully livestock, are you? No, I mean, we've got the problem now with protein. Right, it's a crisis almost. Because they keep turning these boats around with the imported protein in it, because they find traces of GM, and I'm worried I won't be able to get enough protein on my farm. Somebody's written to me as a constituent saying he's been warned by his supplier. He's a chap with a couple of 100 acres, barley, and he has pigs. The barley is added to imported soya, and that's a ration for his pigs. Because he's a small chap, he's not in a co-op, he's right at the front end of this, and he's been told we may not be able to get your soya.
Really? It's a big problem. And it's just amazing what people's they're very short-term policy making in ways. It's not a problem. We are going to reach a real crunch point where there's not going to be enough protein to feed to reduce the poultry and pig meat that people want.
Well, in Brussels, I make it my business to try and point out some of the practical problems on the ground for farmers, which many of the committee members there are simply unaware of, because they're not really there to look at practical problems. They're there to push an agenda, be it climate change or be it social conditions on Eastern European farms, that sort of thing. And I like to bring a muddy boots approach to the whole thing, pointing out that in Britain we would like things to be done this, that and the other way, and the things they're talking about in the committee really have no direct advantage to British farmers, and so I'm there to represent the British farmer and common sense, I hope.